Welcome to War Thunder with Subdude. How y'all doing today? Well, this is going to be a short little lesson in semi-active radar homing missiles and chaff. Now, before you get going, this is one of my least favorite aircraft in the game, the MiG-23 MLD. Now, you might be going, well, it's a great fighter. And I'm like, yeah, it's a fighter. It is a straight fighter. It's not a multi-role, really, aircraft. Um, some people will be like, oh, yeah, it is. No, it's not. It's a interceptor, dogfighter, fighter. Um, Now, I'm carrying two of the R-24 missiles that are the semi-active radar homing. And I'm carrying four of the R-60s. I wish they were R-60Ms, but you get what you get. And I think Gaijin is basically trying to balance the aircraft by giving it R-60s rather than R-60Ms. Now, that said, this is a plane that will excel at beyond visual range combat with radar missiles and heat-seeking missiles. The R-24s and R-23s are long-range shots. And the reason I'm carrying the R-24s is because I don't want to get into a dogfight. Unfortunately, that isn't the outcome of the game or the match this time. Now, flying along, I'm climbing to altitude to get up to where it will be where the plane is best suited. High altitude is where this plane is supposed to excel. And that's where radar shots come from. Semi-active radar homing. Now I'm starting to level out because I'm up at a good altitude, 29,000 feet. And I'm looking around to see what's developing. And I'm starting to get up over the water, making sure that nobody is around me before I start looking. About 31,000 feet. Starting to turn in towards the land again. And the reason is because this is where the enemy's going to be. His airfield is over in this general direction, so he could possibly be headed in my direction. My radar is currently set to 30 kilometers. And I'm not seeing anything at 30 kilometers. So again, start looking around. And one of the nice things about this plane is it does have a look down, shoot down. I see the first EJ plane and I'm thinking, well, maybe, but there are other planes closer to him. There's another, it's an F5. There's another EJ and another EJ. I believe I locked up that one that I'm looking at. Nope, Austria-Hungary, he was the last player standing on their side. Yeah, I think it was composite or whatever that one is. But I was working on getting a good radar lock. Missile away. Doing a little bit of evasive. Trying to make sure no counter battery. And there he is. He's dead. And this is pretty much the end of the match for me, because I start trying to go after this F4E, tactical taco, whatever. And while I'm flipping around with him, I get Mohica'd. And that's pretty much it for the match in me. But with the match over, let's talk about what the enemy pilot did wrong. He kept coming at me. Now, he might have nosed down a little, might have turned a little bit, but he didn't turn or nose down enough. When you get painted by a radar and you are getting your early warning receiver going, wee, it means somebody's looking at you seriously. And it means you should turn 90 degrees off from where that radar is to stop letting him paint you and start popping chaff once you're turned. And the reason you want to start popping chaff as you're turning or once you've turned is because if you don't and you're popping chaff while you're still driving at the person that's painting you, all you're doing is making your radar signature bigger and bigger, which means the return is getting stronger and stronger. And radar missiles have a proximity warhead. They're not an impact warhead, although they will impact and detonate. But for the most part, they are proximity fused, which means they have a radar or a radio signal that goes out maybe 50 feet. How 60 feet would be close to 30 or 20 meters. Let's say it's 20 meters. That missile gets within 20 meters of your aircraft, and that, however many, well, let's see. Secondary weapons. Let's see. Explosive, 13 kilograms of explosive mass. Equivalent in TNT is 20.8 kilograms. That's a massive warhead in a missile. That thing is going to have one heck of a blast radius. And they don't make them just blast radiuses. I know with U.S. missiles, they make them so they're expanding rod or coiled rod, expanding, explosives. Lots of shrapnel involved in the detonation of that warhead. And that explosive detonation is going to cut your plane to ribbons. And that's a big weapon. And that's what I fired, an R-24R. Now, like I said, that missile has a proximity fuse. It gets within a little bit of range of your plane, it detonates, it cuts your plane to ribbons, you're dead. That's what you've got to pay attention to. Turn, pop flares and chaff with a semi-active radar homing missile. The flares aren't going to do you any good, but the chaff will create a cloud behind you. That cloud becomes a much larger radar target. That radar target then makes the enemy radar not know which to point at, and it causes it to lose focus, and it can cause the radar missile, the semi-active radar homing missile, to miss. And this is something that all players should be cognizant of. That player kept driving straight at me. He might have gone into a bit of a dive, but it wasn't enough. He might have given it a bit of a turn, but it wasn't enough. Your best bet is at least a 60-degree turn, if not a 90-degree turn, away from whatever is painting you. Now, if he's already painting you from 90 degrees, you're fine. Just start popping chaff. But if you're in a head-on situation, your best salvation is to turn left or turn right. Or even go straight up. Doesn't matter. As long as you're putting out a cloud behind you that the radar will not be able to lock onto you specifically. But that's about all I've got. Again, I'm not the greatest fighter ace in the world. I am horrible at air-to-air combat. Sometimes I get it right. Most of the time, I don't. But I do know the tactics. And for semi-active radar homing missiles, your best tactic is to turn away and start popping chaff. If you maintain a head-on profile, you will lose to the missile. Subdude signing out. Y'all have a pleasant today, a better tomorrow. We'll catch you in the sky in Air Realistic on the Enduring Confrontation maps, which are the best maps in the game. Take care, folks.